miss my Parents for Good family. I'll definitely be back next month, but I just want to say happy show. I'm so happy for Annette and Selena for letting me work with them, and it's just been such a fantastic learning experience. And I'm sure our guests today are going to be absolutely fantastic and blow everything out of the water. Happy show.
Aww. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Parents for Good podcast. I'm Annette Wittenberger, and I'm your host. And we are going to be talking about the hustle paradigm, balancing drive and well-being. So today we're going to be diving into a topic that resonates with so many of us. Fast-paced, achievement-driven world of hustle culture. We're going to be exploring how this relentless pursuit of success impacts our lives, our mental health, and our perceptions of what it truly means to succeed. Joining us are two remarkable guests, Dr. Sarah Adler, a mental health innovator and clinical associate professor of psychiatry, and Lola Bessis, a senior student deeply immersed in the academic hustle. Together, we're going to unravel the complexities of hustle culture, looking at how it shapes our lives from the perspectives of both mental health expertise and the lived experiences of the younger generation. So let's get this conversation started. Here you're going to see, and I don't know if I can read it all because, oh my gosh. So Dr. Sarah Adler, she is the founder and CEO of Wave Life, a mental health platform that pairs affordable and quality coaching with engaging and immersive skill building for Gen Z. She is a licensed clinical psychologist and former hedge fund analyst obsessed with improving access to high quality mental health care. As a clinical associate professor of psychiatry at Stanford, she sits on the advisory board of Redesign Health and the board of directors of Empathic. Did I read that right? Okay, sorry. Using AI to improve empathic communication at scale. Previously, she was the CEO at National Behavioral Health Startup and funding partner of Peninsula Behavioral Health Group, providing evidence-based care to the San Francisco Bay Area. All right. I hope I got all that. And Lola, she is in her final year at Skidmore College, pursuing a Bachelor of Arts with a double major in English and Sociology and a double minor in International Affairs and Political Science. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. Her academic endeavors reflect a profound interest in understanding societal dynamics and global issues, particularly concerning women's rights and liberation. I want her to tell you the rest because, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She grew up in Paris and Dubai, or she had parents from Paris and Dubai, and it's fluent in French and Spanish. So let's bring them on because this is just amazing. Hi.
Hi, Annette.
Hello.
I couldn't even do your bio justice. So let's just get it because it's just
all
amazing.
Good. All good.
How are you today?
Good. I'm good.
Good.
All right. So we're going to get into sharing a word that you are feeling about today's conversation. What would your one word be?
Excited.
I'm a little nervous considering I'm representing the younger students.
I understand that, but it's amazing. So yes, let's do it. So when we talk about balancing high performance and mental health, Dr. Adler, as someone who has navigated high performance work environments and is an expert in mental health, how do you advise professionals and students to maintain their mental health, their mental well-being in the midst of hustle culture?
Yeah, I think there are kind of a bunch of different ways that I try to help people navigate high performance cultures and take care of their mental health. And I think the first one is really cultivating a mindfulness practice. And when I say that, I don't really mean sitting there like with yoga, being like Om and doing mindful, but really sort of exercising awareness about how they are feeling. Because when really take a step back and do an assessment of where we are at any given time, that is what makes us most susceptible to be able to make change. So, for example, if we are looking out for signs of stress, if we're looking out for negative emotions that are popping up, if we're looking out for signs of a lot of stress, we can then actually, that's the first step to then taking a step back and actually doing something to make it better. Then once we sort of have that awareness, we can then do other things. We can make sure we're setting super realistic goals for ourselves. We can learn skills like time management. We can make sure we practice self-care, but I also love to talk about practicing other care as well, because we focus a lot on ourselves, but taking care of others can actually be really amazing as well to decrease our stress. And also to make sure that we're seeking support where we need it. But most, and I would pass this to Lola to ask her what she thinks about this, because she doesn't have any choice about where she is, but most of all, thinking about where are you either in the workplace or in your educational kind of journey, and figuring out who you can go to advocate for balance for yourself, making sure that there's an alignment between your workplace and your own values and your goals. Or I don't know, Lola, if you have a way to do that at school, but definitely joining internships at places where your values are aligned and people aren't going to necessarily abuse you or take advantage of your time too.
I just want to I'm just going to add a comment before, Lola, you can answer those questions. I appreciate Dr. Adler for you talking about or pointing out that sometimes self-care can include helping other people, because that's totally me. That's like my passion in the mental health space. I love helping other people. My self-healing journey includes that. It makes me feel good. And I just think it's so important to mention that, because it doesn't always have to be like, getting a manicure or whatever. It's doing for others. And so, yeah, I appreciate that. Lola, what do you think?
I definitely appreciate that comment as well. I think that we live in such a time, especially as a young person, where everything that revolves around taking care of yourself is very individualistic, and it ends up isolating people even more. So I definitely think that that's incredible advice. And then on the front of how in the college space, I find that, at least for me, because I do try and do so much, professors are often the ones who are telling me to take time off. And I'm going to our live event in New York City this weekend, and I'm leaving for 4 days. And so I gave all my professors a heads up that I wouldn't be working. I wouldn't be on emails, because I work for a few of them as well. And they were all like, go, have fun, do it. And I found that, at least in the undergraduate space, there's a lot of grace given to students. And there's a lot of understanding and time and support provided for us.
That's amazing that you have that support, because we don't always get that. And the fact that you're going, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. That's amazing. And I also love that you agree with the self-care of giving back to other people. So thank you so much for that. I have a question for you, though. In regards to student perspective on hustle culture, as a college student with a diverse academic background, how do you perceive hustle culture within the academic environment, and what impact do you see it having on students like yourself?
I think that hustle culture, loosely defined, is kind of innate to the requirements of academia, particularly someone who wants to do really, really well and who wants to excel, like myself. Each class that I'm taking right now, as I'm in my senior year, and their higher level classes, require about 100 pages of reading a week, along with some written assignments. And then I, because I have close relationships with my professors, have those commitments with them where I work on independent projects with them. I'm a research assistant, and I'm also doing my internship with I Can Help, because the time of your undergraduate is when you're meant to be also building those job experiences to then go into the job market. And I take this to the extreme. I have 2 majors, and you mentioned 2 of my minors. I actually just declared a 3rd minor. So I'm now also minoring in history. But I see around me students who just have 1 major and they focus on that, and they're perfectly content. So overall, I'd say that although there's definitely pressure to hustle, to do the most, to stand out, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing, because that's kind of what college is meant to be preparing you for. And it's meant to really challenge you and get you to understand what you're passionate about, what you can and cannot handle. And I find that, as I mentioned, within academia, especially undergraduate, there is space to kind of mess up and then pick back up, and there is grace and leniency.
Okay, so you're making me feel bad because I couldn't handle. I had a double major in photography and psychology, and then I did ROTC. I gave up photography to just focus on psychology and ROTC, but now I'm like, dang it, I should have. But it's all good. It's all good. And I try to figure my life out. And then I'm listening to you. I was like, oh my gosh, I was just not a good student. If I could do it over, I would have probably put more focus into that. But I'm so proud of you for doing all that. It's just you're such a inspiring young adult for so many people, and to keep going. God has a plan for you, and I think it's fascinating what you're doing. But I also love about the hustle. Selena makes fun of me a lot too, because, she doesn't make fun of me. She actually supports me. I do a million different things because I'm passionate about it. And I try to hustle to make sure things are getting done, or, we're making sure we're networking or whatever. And I don't know, it fuels me. I love it. So I guess it just depends on why you do it, right? I don't know. I love it.
And Annette, I was going to say that this is something that works really well for Lola, but it may not have worked really well for you at your time. And I think that's one of the things that's really important. I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but we don't need to live in a world of comparison where we are judging ourselves based on what our neighbor, what our podcast guest, whatever, what we're doing. We need to really just be able to be mindful and checking in about what is good for me in this moment, and accept that in a non-judgmental way, so that we can then make the best choices that are aligned with our particular values in that moment. But it is so hard to not compare ourselves, especially when we have amazing people like Lola around to do that.
And you're so right, and I appreciate that. And I think as I get older, I'm stopped doing that. Like, this is meant for me. I'm on my path. This is what I'm allowed to do, and and I tell my kids the same thing. So it might have taken me 40, 35 plus years, but it's okay. It's okay. So I have another question for you, Dr. Adler. So when we're talking technological influence, good grief, with your experience in integrating AI for empathic communication, how do you see technology playing a role in either perpetuating or alleviating the pressure of hustle culture?
So this is such a two-sided question, because technology, just as we were talking about, can definitely lead us to compare ourselves to others. We know this when we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. It can be this platform for where we're constantly making an assessment and evaluation of what does my body look like compared to that person, what is this or that. And at the same time, technology can play a spectacular role in, I think, alleviating some of the pressures of hustle culture. There was a TikTok that just went viral last week. I might be slightly behind because I'm on Reels more than I am on TikTok, but that showed a woman who was quitting her job, or she was getting laid off, and her layoff went viral. And I think it really, did you see that?
Yes, I did.
It normalized the experience for lots of other people. So I do think technology, social media does have can have an impact on us for good, especially for marginalized populations, for populations, LGBT folk, for BIPOC folk who may not be able to find community in other places. It really can protect us in that way and give us community, as long as we're not going overboard using it too much. And again, back to the mindfulness, as long as we're noticing when it starts to feel bad. And that's one thing I sort of tell my patients, I tell my kiddos, I have to tell myself, is that social media technology can be used for good. It can be a good thing until it starts to really make us feel bad. And we should note that, and then also potentially have strategies to help us get off it. In terms of things like using AI for empathic communication, there I'm super excited. I sit on the board of a company called Empathic, as you said it just right, Annette. which actually corrects people's text messages, corrects people's Slack messages, corrects people's communication in real time to help them become more connected and empathic, which is truly kind of amazing because in today's hustle culture, we can really turn to short form communication. We can communicate in like Twitter bites, right? And it can sound really harsh. We're removed from each other, being with each other in a face-to-face environment. And that can really kind of make us rude, make us polarized, make us angry, and we don't really filter ourselves because we forget we're actually talking to other humans. And so I do think empathic AI can really shift that and can really help correct when we might be saying something that is too quick or where the tone could be misinterpreted. So I think, like anything else, technology can be used for good or it can be used for evil. But I think there are definitely ways that it can actually really help by normalizing.
That's fascinating. That is so amazing because you're right. My son does it. Sometimes he does short form, and I have to I laugh at it because I know what he's trying to say, but let's like spell the whole word out.
I always joke around. My mother will send me a text and it will say, "Dear Sarah, I hope you're well. How is your day going? Love, Mom." I mean, this is the text she sends me. And my daughter will send me a text the next minute that says, "Food?" ? So it's like, you see this kind of generational gap play where really there can be a misinterpretation. Can you imagine if I went to one of my investors or one of my colleagues who I'm having lunch with and are food ? Like, that's not going to happen. So there's a generational aspect to this as well.
Absolutely. And you're so right. I find myself trying to be more mindful of the messages that I send because you're right. The tone, it could come off so off just by saying the wrong word or the wrong exclamation point or question mark or whatever. So that's amazing. And I also like how you said, sometimes you step away from social media. I know that Selena's done it. I've done it. Like I used to do a podcast all the time. I stepped away for like a year because it was just not serving me anymore. And if I couldn't give 100%, then I'm going to step away from it. Just little things like that. But social media, it can be good or bad depending on how it's received or comparing yourself or whatever the case. There's just so many angles to it. So I guess it just depends on the person. Yeah. And so Lola, you're next. For a viewpoint of a feminist, considering your passion for feminist issues, how do you think hustle culture impacts women and girls, particularly in academic and early career stages?
I think we live in a moment where, especially if you look at affluent countries, you look at women who come from a certain background of privilege, are given almost equal opportunities, both academically and in early career stages as men, when you count, prior to motherhood, because that's really when disparities start to show. But this means that a lot of women have endless options with what they want to do with their career. And feminists have been fighting for that. And I suppose it adds kind of an extra pressure because younger women will often be the first female educated in their families or the first ones becoming a lawyer or a doctor entering these previously male-dominated fields. So there's kind of this added pressure to overperform, to add the extra minor, to get the PhD later on. And then you add the pressure of coinciding the early career with the fertility years and motherhood, and then the pressures about that, and you hear that discourse about your biological clock is ticking, and women are obviously not oblivious to that, and so everyone is worried about them focusing too much on their career and not being married, but also they need to be independent enough to take care of themselves. And so we hear constantly this being discussed in pop culture, this now the double shift that women have to work. So there are, I think, very unique pressures in our moment that young women are faced with, especially then. Sarah Adler, you mentioned social media and like comparing yourself. And I think that we see that women are disproportionately comparing themselves on social media with other women. So it's kind of having to wrestle with all these dichotomies and these added pressures, I think, are added unto women at the moment.
That just hit me so hard because the first thing I thought about as you were explaining this was America Ferrer's character in the Barbie movie. I know. That was so strong. Did you see the movie?
Of course.
That was so strong. Like even now I'll see it replayed on Instagram and it just brings me to tears because she's so right. And I think it's just because of the way her character as well, but as she is, how she is as a human being. But that just says it right. It says it all right there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's incredible. But I kind of felt like that in the military. I felt a lot of pressure because I was in a male dominated unit and I just felt like I had to be a certain way. I had to act a certain way. I had kids. I was 25 and 28. So I had to figure out, like, how do I tell my boss I have to leave to pick him up from daycare or bring him back to work? Or it was just the juggling act. But then I felt guilty because I didn't want my boss to think I was weak. But then I felt bad because I'm a mom. Like, what? and I know I'm not the only one. It's even in corporate America. So it's all over the place. But my daughter, she used to tell me I want to be 25 when I have my child. I don't want to be old. And I was like, girl, look, what? So she had this expectation because she felt that after 25 was just too old. So it's just that, yeah, it's just the society is just making it feel like you cannot do all the things. So yeah, I wish more girls would just listen. Like, trust me. It's okay if you're in your 30s. Trust me. So thank you for being a representative and for having those conversations because it's needed still and forever, I think. So on to question 3, Dr. Adler, for when we discuss Gen Z's mental health. Your platform, The Way of Life, focuses on Gen Z. So in your view, how is hustle culture affecting this generation's mental health? And what strategies can be employed to address those challenges?
Yeah, so this is what I can talk about all day long. I mean, Gen Z is actually teaching us, digital natives are teaching us about how to set boundaries and set limits on hustle culture. I see digital natives in the workplace, Gen Z in the workplace, pushing back on hustle culture like nobody's business. And it's something that is causing a lot of difficulty and a lot of challenge with the kind of millennial, Gen X, boomer managers, because where they all were kind of buying into hustle culture and saying, we're going to work. Our time is not our own. It belongs to this paycheck, this entity that's giving me a paycheck. And that was in service of a bigger, brighter future. It was in service of being able to buy a house, buy a car, financial security. And this is a generation that just doesn't see that in the same way. It's a generation that collectively is kind of saying, I don't know whether climate change there's going to be a house for me to buy, or I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to afford a house. So why should I attach my every moment, every waking moment to some corporate entity that is not even going to give me the American dream that my elders have signed up for? And so they are really demanding very, very different things in the workplace. And this is something I focus on a lot with our business customers, is to say, hey, you may not like the work ethic that Gen Z is showing up with at work every day, but they are going to be 30% of the workforce in less than 6 years. So you better figure out how to communicate with them and learn from them. And Gen Z is really showing up in a way where they are not necessarily as interested in working even 9 to 5, right? There's another TikTok meme that went on, right, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where the girl was like, wait, what? You expect me to work 9 to 5 and commute? Like, how am I supposed to do that? Right? So we're sort of interacting and interfacing with this generation that says, no, I want to do work that has meaning. I want to do work that is congruent or aligned with my values. And it's kind of a culture shock for all of us. So I think part of what I can say to Gen Z is, again, make sure when you are trying to find a job that you're finding a workplace that is aligned with your values, because really clear, aligned expectations will prevent a lot of misery down the road. Now, not everyone has the privilege to be able to do that, but when you can, assess who you're working for and whether or not the expectations that they have of you make sense for you, right? And for the millennials managers and the Gen X managers on the other side, come to the table and start listening to your workers, because they are asking for things that maybe aren't so unreasonable, but you're going to have to figure out a compromise or things are going to get real crazy.
That is so interesting to me. It kind of reminds me of when soldiers get out, whether they're retired or they don't, and they go into the civilian workplace, and civilians are trying to figure out how to work with them. Like, it doesn't matter that you spent so many years in the Army, you are here now. And
That's right.
them trying to connect is so difficult. It's just, or you know, a 20-year-old coming in to be your boss, or like lieutenants. When I joined the Army, I was 23, and then I was the boss of someone who's been in for 20 years already. And they're like, I don't need to listen to you. I've been in for so long. So it's everywhere. And it's so interesting. And no one really taught us how to work together. They kind of said, you listen to her because she's your boss. You can't do that. You know what I mean? We need to figure out how to work together.
Gen Z, to your point, they're not buying into that traditional corporate hierarchy either. They challenge authority, because authority, we're the ones who got them into this mess. So they just don't believe us. They don't actually they don't follow the same corporate hierarchies or sort of fall in line in that way. And it's pretty impressive. They ask lots of questions. One of the biggest complaints I hear from millennial, why is Gen Z asking so many questions? They don't need to know that. That's above their pay grade. I mean, and it's amazing, because no, Gen Z wants to know why. Why are you doing this thing? Explain it to me. And sometimes that's not, you know, aligned with the business needs, and so it doesn't work out so well. But it's something that we should be thinking about in terms of how do you foster communication with your employees so that they really actually want to do the work. And I think that's actually, I'm curious about what Lola thinks of this too, because I think that's what educational institutions kind of do well. There's enough of an investment in the students so that they want to do work. Intellectual curiosity is a value that's celebrated. And so I think it really works there. It's something we can kind of learn and bring into the corporate workspace as well.
Interesting.
I'm giggling a little because I had a conversation like with professors about this just last week, about how college makes you very critically aware and critically reflect on everything around you. So I'm taking a course that kind of looks at sports from a cultural lens and kind of criticizes it. And so the sports fan in class feel attacked about it. But I was saying, I kind of started feeling that way about shopping when I learned about fast fashion. And it's this idea that I think Gen Z is one of the most college educated generations. And if we're all taught this skill of critical thinking, we're way less able to then just accept authority that's given to us. And we're going to be a lot more mindful about it, critically aware, and just asking more questions.
That's right. That's actually, I call Gen Z is the double click generation. They are always double clicking into, what are my peers saying about this? What do the reviews say? What does Yelp say? They want to understand what they're buying, what they're drinking, what they're eating, what they're consuming, all of the things. And it's to their credit. Like they're constantly asking for more information. And I think that's a good thing.
Oh my gosh. I'm learning so much right now. And I think it kind of helps me with, I mean, my kids are 21 and 23, but still I had to learn how to communicate with them because of the way that society is right now. And so I had to just go on their level, and I can't just be like, well, this is how I did it. It doesn't apply anymore. We have to shift. So yeah. Oh my gosh. So we have just 2 more questions. My daughter wants to call me right now. Lola, for when we're talking about global perspectives, having grown up in Paris and Dubai, do you see any significant differences in how hustle culture is perceived or experienced in different cultural contexts?
Yeah, definitely. In Dubai, I went to an international school, and the international school milieu is just very unique. In particular, I think the pressure was even more heightened than what I can sense it is in American high schools from my American friends I talk to. in Dubai, we were all children of immigrants. Everybody there was an expat. And so we all faced a tremendous pressure to overperform in high school because we all had to get into college. We all had to get out of the house at 18 and had to go abroad and, you know, go and find some university that would accept us. So it was common practice for us to go to college programs during the summer. We'd fill all of our free time with as many extracurriculars as possible so that we had that guaranteed standout application. But the US culture overall, I found is more relaxed. There's obviously still some overachieving students who pack their schedules and do the most, but I have not seen that to be the norm. I don't think every single student is expected to do that. And the US has also a much greater awareness of mental health and work-life balance. So teachers and professors here seem to be able to understand things like anxiety and stress and the pressures that students are facing.
Wow. I had no idea. So what did you think then when you came? Well, yeah, what did you think about how different it is? Like, do you think that we should be more like how it is over there, or just I wouldn't even know.
I think that being in college, I don't think that college is for everybody the way that we've made it out to be. And I think that now there is this kind of obligation to go to college, if not to also go to graduate school if you want to find a decent job. And I think that that's just not right. I know that I was meant to be in academia. I want to stay in academia for the rest of my life. So I'm very thankful that, you know, this culture has forced me into going to college. But I really, really don't think it is for everybody. So I don't think that that mentality of I have to do the most just so I can get into college later is what is right. I think that people should fill their time with what they're passionate about and what they love doing. So, you know, if someone genuinely is passionate about musical theater, piano, whatever their extracurriculars are, sure, fill your time with that. It's incredible. But if you're just doing it for the sake of putting it on your CV or resume, it kind of leaves you feeling empty.
You are so right about that. And it's just amazing to hear you say that, because that's how it is. You know, unfortunately, you can't get into the next job unless you have a certain degree. That's just, and so you work so hard to do that, and then if it doesn't happen, you feel defeated or like a failure. So it's so difficult. Wow, you're so smart. It's amazing to see how this generation is, and it's I'm just so proud, like, of all of you guys for being the way that you are now. You know, I mean, my son he's going to community college because college isn't meant for him. My daughter is graduating with her master's, so two totally different kids, but we could not force him to do it because it's not his passion. He found his passion and he decided, I'm going to go to school for this. And I realized that I cannot force this kid to be like this kid. They are two different kids. They both have different passions. They both want to do different things in life. And I had to be okay with that, because when I was growing up, you're going to college, you're getting out of the house. That was just it. So I had two choices. And then I just felt like I had to do certain things in order to be successful, which is not the case. So I'm just amazed at your perspective, and I appreciate it. So we have one last question. So sad, but this is for both of you. So when we're talking about redefining success in your respective fields, how do you believe we can redefine success to create a healthier balance between ambition and well-being?
Lola, do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I feel like I've kind of alluded to it, but just allowing people more flexibility in their passions and the way they want to pursue their lives. Like your son going to community college, his degree is not, or his life is not any less valuable than your daughter's. Right. And I feel like we need to shift our values in that sense. And that would also you know, allow my earlier point, women to feel so much better about what they're doing. If a woman is at home and we value that as much as a woman who is in the workforce, or if we normalize women bringing their children to their meetings with their boss, and we don't see that as like the antithesis of a working person, then I think that we could create a much more inclusive society that would help everybody achieve what they're truly passionate about without setting these incredibly high and unachievable standards for what is valuable and what is considered legitimate in our society.
You're so right. What do you think?
I think I couldn't have said that better. And I'll just agree with everything Lola just said and just add on a little bit. I think one of the things that we tend to do is define success by our profession or by our professional ambitions. And I think there are so many parts of ourselves. And this is something I don't think I realized until I was in my 35 pluses. Yes, I'm in my 40s. And it wasn't something that I really understood until I became a mother, but not becoming a mother is a perfectly valid choice as well. But as a partner, as a mom, as a dog parent, as a professor, as a CEO, as a friend, all of the different sort of areas and compartments in my life, I can define as successful in very different ways based on what my values are for each of those things. So I think it's important to say that, like, oh, if money is financial security is a value for you, yeah, by all means go after that if it's something that's important to you. And if it's not, by all means go after a different kind of career and find fulfillment in different ways. Because it's sort of like no one person can sort of meet all of our needs. I think no one compartment in our lives or no one set of values can do that for us either. So really understanding that we have lots of different values, we have lots of different things that are really important. Sometimes they conflict, sometimes they don't. And they're also very malleable. They change over time. So even if this thing that you think you value at 25, acknowledge that it may shift and change when you're 30 and accept that. So I think, like, ultimately, redefining success is about acceptance of who you are, where you are in the moment, and really adopting what I call a non-judgmental stance towards yourself and your own thinking. So that's my vote.
No, I absolutely agree, and I love it because it took me a long time to accept that I wanted to do certain things for my why was different than someone else's. I used to be in these communities where it was all about, well, how can you make six figures? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I had to tell myself, you know what? I don't need to do that because that's not why I'm doing it, and it's okay. My values are different than yours. So yes, it took a while, but I think it's so important to keep reiterating that because it's okay to do whatever you want to do based off your values. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Lola. I'm so sad. This conversation was amazing, and I want people to know where to find each of you. So where can we find you? Oh, there you are. There you are. This is where we can find you guys. So for those that are watching or listening, please go and find Dr. Adler and Lola on all their social media. Oh, you're on TikTok too. I need to go follow you on TikTok.
I'm not posting actively anymore. I haven't posted for about a year, but my content is still there. So
that's okay. Where would you prefer people to go find you?
Oh, if people professionally want to find me, they can find me on LinkedIn. If they're Instagram, I would say our Wave Life Instagram really has an amazing amount of just really good science-backed, high-quality mental health content. And our app does that too, and you can download it at wavelife.io. But really, any of these places, depending on what your needs are, you can find me.
No, that's awesome. I'm going to look at your app too. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. What about Lola? Where would you prefer people to find you?
Same with me. If you professionally want to get in touch with me, kind of stalk my LinkedIn, go ahead and do that. And then if you just want to connect with me more socially, I'm always posting on Instagram. I'll be posting a lot next week when I attend I Can Help's in-person Digital for Good event. So if you want to follow along with that, I suggest my Instagram.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys both so much. I learned a lot, and I just love this conversation. I really did. So thank you for your time and for all that you do.
Thanks for hosting, Annette. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.